Hey, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, then my name is Erica. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about diet culture in schools. Now, I got this idea because I've been listening to a few podcasts specifically about diet culture in schools. I work with teenagers in different capacities in different parts of my job. And as someone who developed an ED at like 13 or 14, I want to be as informed as possible and reduce the harm that I cause. So I've been listening to a lot of podcasts about that, and one of the podcasts was interviewing Gwen Hostel, who actually started a nonprofit called Dietitians for Teachers, and it is a nonprofit specifically aimed at helping teachers understand nutrition in a way that is not entrenched in diet culture, and also just dispelling a lot of the misconceptions, because teachers are expected to teach about nutrition, but they're not always given that proper education, so they may just be looking online and spreading false or harmful information, and we don't want that. But I think the one thing specifically that inspired this video is Gwen Hostel, which this is no hate to her, because I'm sure within her work she's met a lot of people that have shaped her view on this. But she said that teachers never intend harm when they're spreading diet messages, or when they're spreading messages that may be harmful. And while for the most part I agree with that, I've had a few, probably more than a few, experiences that have made me disagree that they never intend harm. And that is what really inspired this video. I've been wanting to talk about this for a while, but I haven't really found a way to talk about it without just being like, okay, here's something from my childhood that really shaped the way I think about food and my body. I didn't want to do that because that just seems like rehashing negative experiences for no reason, although it does help to unpack things and make sense of things. But I feel like in the context of this, where I'm talking about diet culture in schools, it makes sense. So, for a little bit of background, in middle school, I was really involved in drama club. I was one of those drama nerds. I was in it every year. I was in the school musical, which is funny because I can't sing at all. Like, I do like acting and all that, but singing is not my area of strength. But anyway, I was heavily involved in drama club in middle school, and our drama teacher was someone who also taught orchestra. And now, from what I remember about her, she was constantly shaming our bodies and like making us exercise before drama, which I don't think is legal. I don't think she had the insurance for that. But anyway, she was doing this and we were exercising and all this. But I remember a few instances in particular where she just body shamed a bunch of 12 to 14-year-olds for no reason. She would say things like, I'm in my 30s and I'm in better shape than all of you, which, why are you comparing yourself to people that are barely teenagers is beyond me. As someone in her late 20s, I don't think, number one, I don't think I would ever comment on a teenager's body. I mean, I would never comment on anybody's body, period, but that's because of my experience with my ED. I just never think it's appropriate to ever comment on someone's body, whether it's positive or negative, because you don't know how it's gonna affect them. But anyway, she was saying to us, I'm in better shape than all of you, and I'm in my 20s. And she said it in a way like that's shameful, like we were supposed to be in better shape than someone in her 30s, even though we were 12 to 14 and our bodies were still developing. Anyway, that instance really made me think she intended harm with that comment. There's no way for me to interpret that in a way where she didn't cause harm with that comment. And you have to remember, I was like 13 at this point, so I had either already developed my ED or I was very much in the stage of developing it and becoming very obsessed with my body and with food and exercise and tracking that and trying to eat as little as possible and exercise as much as possible and be as small as possible. So to hear this comment really triggered me and made me feel less than, and like I had to try harder at basically denying myself of everything good in life, because once I had fully developed my ED, I didn't really have a life outside tracking calories and exercising and obsessing over all of that. I think teachers and just anybody who interacts with kids and just anybody who interacts with anyone needs to be aware that what they say can impact them throughout their life. And also, why the fuck are you comparing your body to people that are barely teenagers? As somebody that sometimes works with teenagers, I cannot fathom ever making a comment like that or ever even thinking and comparing my body to theirs. That's weird behavior, and she honestly should have been fired for that, but obviously I'm not in charge of that, but that's some bizarre behavior. And that's not even the only comment she made. Like, whenever she saw people walking to the stage, she would comment about how out of shape they were. And I think for me, this wasn't even the only instance of diet culture in the school. Of course, I've talked about my physical therapist who body shamed me in second grade, which had a really devastating effect on my body image and relationship with food and my body and exercise throughout my life. And that's something I'm still dealing with to this day. But I also had another physical therapist after that who was like, this was right around the height of 2000s diet culture, where everybody was freaking out about like all these different foods and how everybody was so unhealthy. And I had these little Skippy peanut butter bar things. They were actually really good. Skippy has stopped making them. They should really bring them back, because from what I remember, they were really good. But for a while, I stopped eating them because of this situation. But so in 3rd grade, when I had a new physical therapist who was by far a lot better than the one that body shamed me in 2nd grade, but she was hell-bent on like being like, oh, these snacks you eat at snack time are unhealthy, and you should eat like an apple instead. These little Skippy peanut butter bars, which I probably shouldn't be saying how many calories were in them, but anyway, they were fairly low not that children should be not worried about low calorie, but they weren't high calorie. They were just these little Skippy peanut butter bars. God forbid people have joy in their life, am I right? Everybody should just be miserable and only eat fruits and vegetables. That's sarcasm, by the way, because as we all know, we need balance in our diets, and not even just balance in the type of foods we're having, but also like we need to have food we enjoy, just as like food that's for health. And I'm not saying you should eat food that makes you miserable. If you hate kale, don't eat kale. Find some type of vegetable you like and find it cooked in a way that you like, and eat it with other things you like. And that's just my philosophy on food, or at least the philosophy I try to have, is to eat food you like and find balance in things that you like, and not just eat things because they're labeled a superfood. Because if you hate kale, don't eat it. Life is too short to eat something you totally hate. But anyway, so this lady, who, by the way, wasn't a dietitian, had no background in nutrition that I know of, and even if she did, she wasn't working in a capacity where she should have been making these comments about a 10-year-old, by the way. And then I remember my teacher at the time was also complaining about how the kids that would get breakfast at school would be eating bagels. Oh, horror! All those carbs? 10-year-olds can't eat carbs? And she would be like, oh yeah, they're just having that and that, and they're gonna gain weight. And these are 10-year-olds. Ma'am, their bodies are developing, their brains are developing. They need carbs, they need fat, they need protein, they need all the different nutrients. I really don't understand how in the early 2000s people seem to forget that children were growing. They're not adults. Just because you don't think you can eat a bagel, which, by the way, is probably not true unless you have very specific medical problems, which I would hope, if that's the case, you would be well aware that you have those issues and you cannot have a bagel. But most people are able to eat a bagel. It's not going to kill them. It's not going to harm them. And that's not even the only instance, because then in health class, starting in 6th grade again, as we can tell, middle school was just a bunch of toxic diet culture for me. We had health class, and my health teacher was talking about portion control, which if you also grew up and were in middle school around like 2008 to 2010, you probably remember the big portion control craze, which, to be fair, you do want to have things in portion. You don't want to eat too much or not enough. You want to eat enough for your body. But the way that portion control was talked about when I was in middle school was that if you eat something that's bigger than the size of your fist, then your stomach will expand, and after a while you will gain weight because of that, because then you'll overeat because of that. Now, looking back, I interpret that a bit differently than I did when I was 12. But when I was 12, I thought I could only eat a meal the size of my fist, which is, for the most part, it's not going to be a big enough meal. You're not going to be getting enough nutrients. You're not going to be getting enough calories, which calories are a unit of energy. They're not something to be afraid of. But that's how I interpreted it back then. Now I interpret it as he's saying a portion of each like food group, like say grains or vegetables and protein. So you want each portion of those to be the size of your fist, which still I think is a bit reductive and doesn't always have nuance, because there are times I need more carbs than just like pasta the size of my fist. If I'm having a day where I'm expending a lot of energy, I may need more than that. Or if I have a day where I'm not that hungry, I may have less than that. I mean, obviously, you don't want to always have less than that, because that can spiral into under eating, and there are times my brain can convince me, well, this is all you really need today, but then my brain snowballs that into every day. Anyway, that's my own problem. I just wanted to know if anybody else experienced diet culture in school, and if it's affected them to this day, or if it's just me who's stuck in this stuff. I mean, I'm not thinking about it all day, every day. Trust me, I'm not thinking about my drama teacher all day, every day, being like, oh, she body shamed me as a 13-year-old. No, I don't care about that lady. I'll just call her that, because that's not what I wanted to call her. But anyway, I just wanted to know if other people experienced that, and if you did, I really hope you've unpacked it by now. And I really hope that diet culture is not still in the school system, although I have a sneaking suspicion that it is still in the school system, because it's everywhere. But thank you for watching. I hope you learned something. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up. And if you have not already and you would like to see more of my content, please consider hitting that subscribe button down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.